I'm going to begin, David, by asking. I went to Arizona once, and everything just in that kind of neck of the woods felt really cinematic. Every kind of house, every tumbleweed, it all felt like I'd seen it before. And I feel that for someone who's not from that part of the world, we almost view that part of America through the kind of prism of cinema. And I was wondering, when you were shooting, did you just feel that every image, every shot just felt like it really lent itself to the camera?
It certainly did, yeah. I mean, I think both Giles and I, my DP and I, were just kind of. I love the emptiness of the landscape and everything. Everything's sort of everything's uncluttered and everything's kind of graphic and resonant. And I find it very beautiful. I mean, I think maybe being an outsider, you appreciate that more than if you're used to that kind of environment in America. But it was part of the joy of making the film. Really, was being in that environment.
And do you think, in conversely, it can almost be harder to be authentic when you're kind of peering in from an outside perspective because of the fact that everything feels so sort of overtly cinematic in a way?
Yeah, but I mean, I hope we achieved that. And I was very, very conscious of trying not to make an outsider version of America, trying to make an American film, as honestly as possible. Having a very strong script from Taylor with a very strong sense of place was really, really important to me. And I just tried very hard to sort of be an honorary American for the time I was shooting it, and hopefully achieved some of that.
And I was just wondering as well, I mean, there's a kind of Coen brothers element to this, I felt, in some guys, and I mean that as a compliment. It's not imitative in any way. But with that being the case, you must have thrilled to get sort of Jeff Bridges on board.
I'm thrilled to get Jeff Bridges on board. Full stop. I mean, and a lot of my favourite films and films that are resonant for this are films with Jeff in as a young man. I particularly love a film called Fat City by John Huston, which is just very young, and Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, with sort of similar kind of road movie, crime movie kind of thing, set in the Midwest, and Last Picture Show, which is set in Archer City, which is where our first bank robbery takes place. So it's kind of so those are all films with Jeff in as a young man. So it's kind of really nice to be able to kind of resonate with them and kind of bring him back to that world.
And when you are working with an actor of that kind of calibre who's been involved in, as you sort of mentioned, some of the greatest kind of films of all time, how much do you leave them to their own devices? I mean, do they kind of, do you give them more, sort of almost more freedom than you would say when you did Jack O'Connell for Startup, who's sort of still relatively early in his career?
I give everyone freedom, and I have that's how I do it. I kind of, I look. My directorial style is to try and keep all of the things away. I'm a control freak behind me, as it were, but then within the centre of what I'm doing, I'm encouraged a huge amount of freedom. And there's a lot of creative space and no preconceptions, and we explore, we change, we just. It's all about what's happening when the cameras are running, and so that's the same with everyone. And I think Jeff appreciated that. We clicked very well, and he did some really lovely stuff, and he's a great guy as well.
I thought that Chris Pine evokes an incredible amount of empathy from the viewer in this movie, which is so essential because in a film like this, we know they're in the wrong, but at the same time, we have to kind of root for them all the same. I mean, I didn't feel there's too many actors that can really pull that off, so you must have been thrilled to have him on board as well.
It was great, and the great thing about Chris, is that character is locked down. He's not a swashbuckler. He's not like Chris normally plays, but Chris is just he's got that kind of movie star look, and it's kind of great to see him kind of like a bit more down and dirty. And there's a movie called Hard with Paul Newman. It's it's that kind of thing where you've got someone who's a bit more down. Than they used to, and it's a real privilege to have to put a kind of a movie star in that position.
But what are the sort of downsides, I guess, of having an actor of that calibre who's so sort of sought after? Is everything quite busy? And I was reading that Chris could only stay on set for a certain amount of time because of the Star Trek film.
2.5 weeks we had with him, so I had to shoot it all out very quickly. But actually, that was really good because it gave it a real energy, and we shot the film sequentially pretty much sequentially for their part of it. So that you're building up the character as you go along. You don't have to kind of do it in a checkerboard way that you normally do with filmmaking. And I think that it was really helpful. It just gave us 2.5 concentrated weeks of siding with the outlaws and chaos and kind of fun. And then Chris went and I had a totally different vibe with Jeff and Gil, which was so it's like two different films, and in the film those two different energies kind of contrast with each other in a really interesting way, and it was helped by having not very much time, to be honest.
Is that sort of one of the joys of filmmaking, that sometimes so much of it is down to kind of circumstance? And are you very much a filmmaker who likes to just kind of go with the flow in that regard?
Totally like to go with it. I mean, I more than like to go with the flow. I hate not going with the flow. I don't like to prepare very much at all. I like to improvise. I like to play, and I think that in a way, the less preconceived I am with what I've got to do, the better. So as a filmmaker, I've learned to kind of be relaxed about that, and you're flying by the seat of your pants, but what you're doing is you're taking advantage of what's actually there rather than what you're trying to sort of shoehorn in, and that feels like the right way of doing things for me.
And despite the fact that, I mean, it feels like it sounds like it was a real kind of positive having Chris for just that kind of brief period of time. During the time, did it ever feel like you were in a bit of a race against time? Did it ever feel like there's a chance we might not get this finished in time because it's such a short time?
But I mean, all filmmaking is a race. Half of filmmaking is sort of doing battle with the schedule. So I'm kind of used to that, and it wasn't. 2.5 weeks is a comparative luxury for sort of half a film, in some ways. So it was, we never kind of got behind. You just knew we had to do it fast, and for Chris, I think he's used to these bigger, slower movies, and he really loved the speed we were doing it, and the kind of freedom that we had, and he sort of talks about it being jazz filmmaking, and it kind of is, and I think Chris loved that.
And the film has been a huge success on the festival circuit, but as a Brit yourself, I mean, is this the release now that excites you most, knowing it's finally coming to cinemas over here?
I'm delighted. I'm really excited to see how audiences relate to it, and they're already relating to it well in America, and I'm obviously it's an American film, but so I'm hoping that British audiences relate to it too. And although it's very Texan, it's also quite universal. So hopefully it will connect with the British audience too.
I'm not a huge fan of the term kind of genre movie, but I guess, to sort of simplify, your last two films was a kind of prison drama and now a sort of Western of sorts. Following on from that, is there another kind of genre that you're quite keen to explore, one that you like, that you haven't tried your hand in yet?
I don't really know. I mean, give me a few genres.
Oh, sci-fi.
Well, I kind of did that with Perfect Sense in a way to kind of look. I do have a sort of space film that I'm in the middle of writing, but it's too long at the moment. I need to cut that down. I'll kind of keep. I mean, I'm much more comfortable with genre now than I used to be. I used to think that genre was just not original, and now I'm okay to kind of like enter into that space and find original ways of doing it, rather, and it's kind of easier to think in those terms. So I'm quite happy to embrace genre really from now on.
So my final question is just wondering, across your career, you've written screenplays, you've directed, and then obviously Hello High Water and Startup as well, your last one. You've used someone else's screenplay. I mean, is there a particular way you prefer to work and one you can see yourself doing more of in the future?
No, I mean, I'm currently writing. I've got a couple of projects that I've written. I also love to be able to come across a really fresh voice, and both Jonathan and Taylor, who are both relatively new to writing. They both had distinct and original voices that was really nice to kind of tap into. So I mean, I'll go wherever the right project takes me, but I'm keen to do my own writing as well.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!